Welcome. Honored Rabbonim, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the closing session of Sinai, Indaba 2. The closing session is devoted to the topic, the theme, the future of the Jewish family. And that says it all. It tells us how important the Jewish family is to all of us. We started this wonderful convention, this gathering of our community, discussing the theme of the future of the Jewish world. But really, the future of the Jewish world is in the Jewish family. And we are all members of families, whether it is as a husband or a wife, as a child, as a grandchild, as a grandparent, a brother or a sister. We are all members of families. And for the future of the South African Jewish community, and indeed the future of world Jewry, that future begins and ends with the family itself. And that is why on Mount Sinai, on Har Sinai, when Hashem asked Moshe Rabbeinu, he said he wants a guarantee for the Jewish future. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I'll give you the prophets, the Avos, the forefathers, the Chachamim, the Zakanim, the sages. And each one of those were offered as a guarantee for the Jewish future, and Hashem rejected each one as that guarantee until Moshe Rabbeinu said, it is the children, the next generation, that are the guarantee for the Jewish future. And then Hashem said, I feel safe to give you my Torah. And our children grow up in our homes and in our families. The Jewish family is the gateway, it's the entrance, it's the key, it's the secret to the Jewish future. And that is why it is so important that we conclude this conference with a discussion on the future of the Jewish family. And indeed, if you have a look at the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, it is the history of the foundations of the world. And look at the way that Hashem tells history, because the Torah is, after all, a book which chronicles history. And it chronicles history in a way which Hashem has chosen to emphasize. Now, how would you write the whole book of Bereshit? There's no doubt that if a man were to write the book of Bereshit, as opposed to a woman, if a man were writing the book of Bereshit, you could summarize the whole book of Genesis in a sentence or two. You could just say, there was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they married Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, and they had children, and then they moved down to Egypt. And then the action begins in the book of Shmot, in the book of Exodus, with the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea. Now we're talking some action. And yet, the way that Hashem tells the story, look at the book of Bereshit. How did Hashem tell the story of history? That there was Avram and Sarah, and they couldn't have a child, and they wanted to have a child, and they davened to Hashem to have a child, and then he took Hagar, and they did have a child, and then there was a Faribel, and they did eventually have Yitzchak, and then Yishmael and Yitzchak had a fight, and then Yitzchak couldn't find a shidduch, so he had to get married, so they go and send Eliezer to find him a shidduch, and he found a shidduch, and then they couldn't have children, so eventually they had children, and they had twins, and then they were fighting, and then the one ran away, and Yaakov tries to find a shidduch, and he wants Rachel, and he ends up with Leah, and then he has Rachel and Leah, and they have children, and Rachel can't have children, Rachel can have children, and the whole family is born. So much detail that could have just been edited out. You want to cut to the chase. What is the essence? The essence is the exodus from Egypt, the revelation at Mount Sinai. We want the great events of history. And the fact that Hashem tells us the history of the world through families, He is telling us in the most powerful way possible that history happens in the home, that history happens with our families. And so we know, as a South African Jewish community, if we want to continue to build a thriving, vibrant Jewish community, there is only one place where that community is nurtured and created, and that is in the home, in the Jewish family. And as the Jewish world, the entire Klal Yisrael, that is where it begins and ends, in the Jewish family. That is the foundations of our history, it is the guarantee of our Torah, and it is the destiny of the Jewish people. And therefore, we have devoted this final session of Sinai Indaba 2 to a discussion on the future of the Jewish family. And we are privileged to have a lineup of world experts, privileged. What a wonderful day it has been with such outstanding speakers. Who have inspired us, they've educated us, they've challenged us, such outstanding men and women who come from a background of Torah values, who understand the world and show us the way to the future. And we end Sinai Indaba too with this closing session of outstanding experts in the field of parenting. We have on our lineup, and I'm not going to introduce each one, they're going to come up one after the other as we did in the opening. We have Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, who is an author of the book To Kindle a Soul, an expert in parenting. Rabbi David Aaron, who brings that dynamic spirituality into Jewish life and into the Jewish family. Lori Palatnik, an expert on marriage, relationships, child raising. Dr. Pelkovitz, who's authored a book, a world-renowned psychologist, and Rabbi Manis Friedman, who is established himself with such a reputation of relationships, family building, and connections between people in an incredible lineup. Each speaker will address us for a short while. And we are privileged to have such an outstanding array of speakers. And without further ado, let me call up Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman to begin.